to Fantasy Hockey Picks and Bets. I'm your host, DJ Mitchell, here to cover the one-game showdown slate, if you will. We have Calgary at Chicago. We'll just kind of get right into it, get you out of here quick. Won't be a very long one. So if you're on your morning commute or something, don't know if I'm going to get you all the way through it, but we will just kick it right off. I'm going to cover a little bit more of showdown strategy in general for hockey. It's going to be pretty high level. I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds. We'll kind of run through these two teams quickly and kind of go over what to expect in this matchup. So it's a 5.5 over under. As of right now, as of recording, it is minus 105 on the over, minus 115 on the under. So yeah, I think at this point, 5.5, I slightly like the over here. It's really hard to predict exactly what will happen. Both goaltenders in this game are projected to be, decent to good at most times. Markstrom is I would say, probable starter. He starts most of the games for Calgary when they get Vladar in there once in a while. Maybe since Markstrom started the last game and it was a loss, they might go to Vladar, but I don't think it makes an astronomical difference in how I perceive this game. Vladar is 5-1-1. He has almost a 930 save percentage. He's been really, really good as a backup. His last time out was his worst game by a pretty good margin in his loss to San Jose. But both of them have been good because the team around them is very good in Calgary. I'm a pretty big believer in them. They did lose 4-2 last time out, and it is what it is. If the top line for them is playing a team like Boston and they're at home, they're going to line up match as much as physically possible. So Gaudreau, Lindholm, and Matt Tkachuk were on the perfection line basically the entire game. Obviously, at times they may have gotten a couple different units they face off against because they played so much when they were losing. But if you look at the Hockey Viz that I'm looking at, the matchup tool, they played them as much as they could possibly do. And yeah, I mean, that's gonna hurt your upside as a top line. So that's kind of what happened here. That Bergeron line had 2 goals, and Calgary just couldn't quite figure it out with their depth. I think this is a much better matchup. Chicago last time out, they were down by a lot early to Toronto. They made a pretty good comeback with Langen in the net, but they fell short 5-4. They made 1 or 2 kind of changes to their line, but it's really hard with Chicago to look at their lines and know exactly what happened because Kane and DeBrincat plays so much more than everyone else. They both had 23 minutes respectively on the top power play unit, which featured Ryan Carpenter, of course. Ryan Carpenter had 15 minutes, penalty kill, power play 1, but he's on the 4th line. Doesn't give a whole lot of room for optimism there. He is a net front presence, tries to get tips. So I think in a showdown slate, there is an avenue to where you say, I'm playing Seth Jones and, Kane and DeBrincat. So I'm going to put Carpenter in there and see if he deflects one in. He's going to be way, way lower owned. He's minimum salary on this slate. That's something that I think you could consider, just logically thinking through how the power play is going to run, but it's probably not necessary. And Taves was the other guy to complete that 5. The top line was actually Dylan Strome that moved up for, I would say, most of the game, but Doc and him kind of split time with Kane and DeBrincat and Kurashev and Kubalik. So there's a narrative there where, you can kind of play Kane and DeBrincat with either Doc or Strome. I think Doc will be a bit more popular because I'm guessing that's what they're going to run in the morning skate, and people will see that. And that's what DraftKings has projected right now. Doc is a good bit more, not a crazy amount, 600 more than Strome. So it's not unreasonable to put it together, but you could get contrarian with Strome, hope that he connects on a goal with those guys, and you kind of set yourself a bit apart in the field, which is something I'm kind of planning on doing at this point. If we look at the last game, one thing that stands out to me the most from Calgary's last game is they were actually projected 4.7 expected goals, and they only had 2. I believe it was Ullmark in net, and he was just really, really good. Let me double check that. Yeah, Ullmark in net, he was really, really good and got the job done. But I think that it's going to be Marc-Andre Fleury on the other side of this game. It should be Langen, like I said, started last time out. And Fleury's been pretty hit or miss. I mean, last game, he had the 30 save shutout against Montreal. Game before that, he gave up 5. So like I'm saying, you never really know what you're getting in Fleury. I think that this is a good spot here I'm planning on, a couple of my constructions having a 5-1 Calgary line 1 with a, fill in the blank player, and then bringing it back with either probably Kurashev or probably Kurashev, honestly. He's a second power play guy. He's a decent rate shooter. He'll get time with good centers that can move the puck to him. Kubalik's more the rate shooter on that line in general, but I'm not going to be able to afford him with the rest of the top line in Calgary. But that's how I'm going to be attacking this game. I also do believe that any of the top line in Calgary's props are going to be in play here at 2.5. Depending on what the lines are, we don't have them yet. I do like Lindholm a good bit, or Matt Tkachuk. I don't mind Johnny Gaudreau, but he can disappear at times. I think that over the course of history, as far as we've seen, Matt Tkachuk is probably your safest bet to be the better rate shooter on this line. And he's definitely been a lot worse this year than I remember him being. But it's not to the insane degree that I just don't trust him anymore. And there's a 7 shot on goal in his last 10 games. There's a few threes, a 4, and a couple misses, but I think that he's probably the safer of the bets. And if we're getting him at 2.5 at, decently fair price point, I think it's a real nice bet there to take. DeBrincat was one guy that I did post. I was like, I'm taking his prop against Toronto. I love the matchup. It's a little bit tougher for me to want to sink my teeth into the top guys in Chicago. They're fine. Like I said, they did this against Toronto. They have a very good team and a better defense than I think a lot of people give them credit for. When he had 7 shots and Kane had like 5, but I mean, this top line and the way that Calgary controls the puck is really hard for me to want to get overly bullish on. To attacking, if you will. So it's hard for me to, with a lot of confidence, say that I like Kane or DeBrincat, their props. It's going to kind of limit you to, do I like any of the props on Chicago? I think that there's enough pace in this game and they'll play with enough pace that any of them can hit for sure. I do worry about the Lindholm line kind of shutting them down pretty good. So it's not to say that it's definitely going to happen because the Lindholm line gave up 2 goals last time out against, a very good Boston line, but the Chicago line is very good. So anything can happen. DeBrincat probably the safer of the bets on Chicago just because of how many minutes he's getting, that he should have a chance to get there. But I don't think I'll be putting my money against it without a little bit more of a little bit more math behind it that I just don't have right now. And depending on what the line will be, and I don't think it'll be very favorable. So with everything being said, I think I've hinted at it enough. I like the Calgary money line the most here at -135. I probably wouldn't touch the puck line. Just doesn't seem worth getting an alternate spread on this at, on the road. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think that the over under is fraudulent just because I do think the goaltending is truly a toss up. Markstrom's great. And I think that gives me enough pause to say, I'm not confident, but Fleury's been so suspect that I do feel okay about it. I think the pace will be there for the shots will be there, I believe, at least for Calgary for sure. But I think Chicago could try to push pace as much as possible and get that over hit. But I don't think I'll be actually betting it myself. It just doesn't seem, I don't see anything in the numbers right now that's leading to me to feel like this is a clear, value at -105. It's just fair. And yeah, I don't know if there's any other really fun, cool spreads that I'm trying to get in on. I think I'll probably end up with a first goal, Matt Tkachuk, something like that. But that's really probably the funnest I'll be playing. And other than that, yeah, we'll just get really quickly into Showdown a little bit more. I already mentioned a couple little notes. I think that there's 2 strategies I'm going to have. I'm going to probably build 3 or 4 lineups, and one of them will have both goalies. I'm just going to bet on a 2-to-1 game. I'm going to build that script, and I'm going to say, what does a 2-to-1 game look like? Because if that happens and you have both goalies and you get those 2 of the 3 or all 3 goals in your lineup, boom, you win all the money. I'm going to build one lineup that is a 5-to-1 Calgary. I'm going to take the full first line. I'm going to maybe hint at a defenseman for Calgary or someone that I think will fit nicely. Anderson makes the most sense, but he's pretty expensive. And then bring it back with, I don't know. Well, I'm going to try the goalie for Calgary will be in there, and then I'll just bring it back with Kurashev or something cheap. And then the last one will be probably a captain, Pat Kane, just because he's only $10K for the cap, or was he for the captain spot? He's the 4th most, he's the most expensive forward, but I don't think it's undoable to think that like he is clearly the best player in this game. And I think he'll be a little bit under-owned because people will just be trying to jam in as much Calgary one as possible. So I'll probably build something with him, DeBrincat, and Strome, just because I think most people put Doc with it, and I could separate myself in that capacity, and then I can bring it back with part of Calgary in one potentially, and I could still get Fleury in the mix on that. So I think that, you could captain Dylan Strome, but I want to make sure he's even playing. First of all, he should be. I mean, he looked pretty good last time out. He had his most minutes he's had all season. And if you do captain Strome, it's going to open up a lot more value that you can actually afford to put in a piece of the Calgary. Calgary won, which I think is going to be kind of important here. So even though they're facing each other a lot, it's fine. So that kind of a lineup build, like I just said, is like a Strome captain, DeBrincat. Oh, I put Doc in there. That's not what I meant. Hold on. This isn't right. It's okay. Doesn't really matter. Strome, DeBrincat, Kane, Fleury, and then if you put in the Chuck, that leaves you 4,600, and you can put in, I don't know, one of the defensemen for Calgary or something like that, or maybe even go all the way down to Kurashev, leave a ton of cap out there. Last note on showdowns, it really should tell a story though. You should pick what you like, think it through, and then build a lineup around that. If you're saying, you know what, I have a really good feeling at Chicago at home tonight, I think that, I'm just going to go with a 4-1 game, build the lineup to fit that. So if you're saying, I really like in this lineup I just built where I went with 4 Chicago guys, it would make absolutely almost, well, I mean, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility, but playing the Calgary goalie is probably not the best bet because you need multiple goals from Chicago. You also need them to probably win in that scenario. And having the losing goalie that gives up a ton of goals at at one of the highest salaries is just probably not going to be in the optimal lineup. Looking at his last game, giving up 4 goals and saving $22, he finished with 1.4 fantasy points. That's kind of what you're building to say that is not going to be in my lineup because it's not going to be optimal. That means one shot on goal would have already beaten him. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying here. If you're stacking one of those lines, including the other goalie, is probably not correct. Unless if you're saying, like I said, you're building a 2-1 game script. You're saying that, one goalie gives up 2 goals and one of them is the best. That better goalie that you're saying only gives up 1 is your captain. And then the other goalie is just going to get there on saves and only giving up a couple goals. All right. Yeah, I think with everything I just said, I could probably get you out of here. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy hopefully a better rest of the week. I know we have a 14 gamer on Tuesday. I'll be doing that over on the Morning Skate podcast with Matt, and we'll be banking some big bucks. I'm hit or miss on these slates. I had a really nice hockey lineup for Saturday, and I talked myself off of the Tavares with my Toronto stack and kicked myself for that one. But keep DMing me, getting in. We got a lot of new people in the Morning Skate podcast Discord. Really cool to see a lot of people talking more stuff. I'll be more active in there this week. This weekend was real busy. So I'll be back in there talking more, but let me know if you have any questions, concerns. I'll post more props tomorrow that I'm playing and I'll win some money. Take care, and I'll talk to you on Friday.